let's see if I can get the thoughts out that I was wanting to share. Same as most of my videos, I got random crap going through my head, and like we all do, and sometimes it's pretty good stuff, and you're like, man, somebody would like to hear that, and then I grab my phone, and usually I forget what it was, kind of like a dream, but it was kind of trying to figure out the aspect of life from a perspective that's kind of this perspective we're supposed to have, which is we're human beings, okay? But in actuality, what we really are is spirits, like taking a ride in a human body for a lifetime. And our jobs as spirits, as representatives of God, is to guide, to be one with the Holy Spirit that's also inside us, as long as we ask God to come in and be the Lord of our life. So you put our spirit in our body, and you put the God's Holy Spirit in the body, and you want them to work together to help the body think, talk, and act in such a way where you're being a representative of God, because that's what He asked for in the Bible. And not that you're trying to be God, or you don't want people to see you as God. You want people to see God through you, and you want them to be able to figure out pretty quick, when they get around you at first and they wonder, like I know they wonder it with my wife, because she's loaded with some good joy and hunger, for the Word and for Jesus and everything, much more so than me. That's one of the things I look up to her about the most, is that hunger she has, and I'm working on that. I'm definitely a big time work in progress, but I feel like I'm starting to figure things out. Now, it doesn't mean all my problems are going to go away or any of that, but it does mean that there'll be a better perspective on all those problems to help them not be so powerful against me. Because no matter what, in the end, we win. We dominate death, and we get to go to heaven and live a flawless life, which we can't even, no way we can comprehend that, because we've never even had a single day of it. But think about, if you can, the day in your life, or the moment, or the hour, or the couple of minutes, or whatever, that was just like the best friggin' day of your life. Everything was going right. Your body maybe wasn't having any aches and pains if you're older like me. You felt like you were even seeing better. Everything, you felt like Ferris Bueller. I mean, everything you thought or said just came out perfectly. Just one of those days where nothing could go wrong. Think about that day, and then multiply it by 1 billion. You can't even look at that equation. You can think about it, but you can't even see what that would be like, because we can't comprehend that type of perfection. But that's what heaven's going to be, is something we literally can't even comprehend. And if we're going to go there as children of God, we want to take as many people with us as we can. And yeah, I'm myself, and probably almost every human, one of the most difficult things you can do is start trying to talk to someone that doesn't even want to listen to you about Jesus. Because I was that guy for so many years. My Uncle Jimmy, bless his beautiful heart, always tried to teach us right, and I sure wish I had listened better. But somehow, even as a little kid, I remember maybe as far back as being 7 or 8, maybe 9, 10 years old, something like that, of already thinking at that age that, because he would take us to church a lot, and I'm thinking I'm too cool for this. You know what? How in the hell at 9 years old do you end up with a vanity like that? To, how do you possibly have a vanity to where you think you're too cool to know about God? That you're already thinking as a little person that hasn't even really experienced the world yet at all. You're already thinking, I can't do this Christian thing because it's going to take too much away from the way that I want to live. I want to be seen as a cool guy. I don't want to be seen as one of these Christian people, though. That's weird. As a little person, I remember that I was like that. I always, I'm a back row guy. We did almost front row for a little while, but I guess I've grown accustomed to being in the back, and also when you're in the back, you get to see all the people that are there. So that makes me feel like I'm part of a bigger organism than just being right up front and I can't see any of the stuff that's going on. So it's, both of them have their powers, but I prefer the back. And also, it's very difficult for me to walk. I got these leg braces, but it's real hard. It's very, very hard to walk. I'll need a walker soon, I'm sure, or a scooter or some shit like that. But so that's also why I sit by the back, so that way I can get out before all the people start crowding in. Because something that's really hard for me is walking in a crowd of people, because I kind of walk like a drunk because my balance is so bad and my legs are so weak. It's just every single step I have to think about all of the mechanics that are going into each step, and rather than just somebody that just hops up and goes somewhere. You don't even think about what you're doing. I'm thinking about every single little mechanic that goes on the whole way down the leg to try to make sure that I don't bust my butt or fall into someone. But anyway, that's changing subjects big time. But that's why I like to sit towards the back, so we can get in and out without me having to hurt myself or anyone else. So anyway, back to the other thing. That's what I was just trying to help myself wrap around this morning, was don't ever forget that you are a spirit. You're not only the tangible thing that you can touch, but you're also a spirit that you can't see, you can't touch, you can't really hear. You got thoughts that run through your head, but hell, half the time you don't even know who they're from. You don't know if they're you don't know if they're a demon or a devil trying to get you to do something bad, and sometimes you don't even know if it's God a lot of the time. And that's a struggle all humans have, of wondering who the voices are. And so, but I'm sure the closer that you get to God, the more you start knowing that, okay, that one's God's voice. And a lot of times, if you're having a thought that you're like, okay, that's some good advice, but I don't want to do that. Usually that's God. It's good, and it's like, okay, that does seem like the right thing to do here, but see, I want to do this. And so maybe that's just not him talking to me. And we try to jump around the very voice we should be listening to. And so that's one I got to work on big time, because a lot of times I have the thought that I know right then. I'm like, okay, that's actually the right thing to do in this moment. That's the best thing to do. That's the thing that if this were a movie and I were watching it and I was the hero of the movie, and we would be in the audience telling the guy, hey, dude, you should do this. And you know what the right thing is, but a lot of times we don't do it. We need to start doing it and make a move that would cause everyone in the movie theater, if they were watching you, to be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a good dude, or that's a cool lady, or man, I'd like to be like that person. I can't believe how much they know that their security of being taken care of in the end is so evident all over them. Like my wife, I get to see it every day. She's right beside me. So I not only get to hear, from God through sermons and things like that, but I get to see an example of him every day in my life, in my house, beside me. You know, it's I, I'm I'm more blessed than I could ever. I mean, it would take 2,500, I don't know, hours for me to sit here and name off every blessing I have, whereas it would only take a few minutes to name off all the really bad shit that's going on in my life. And we all have bad shit. You never know what's beyond the cover. The most joyful person you've ever seen in your life that seems to always have it made, once they close that door at that home, there is no telling what's going on in that life. That Robin Williams, perfect example. That man had the world at his feet. Everyone loved him. He seemed the most joyful person you ever saw, but he hung himself out of depression. So we just never know. I don't even, I guess I'll post this thing. I just needed to get my thoughts out. You know, sometimes I just do this and it makes me feel better because I was able to say everything that I felt like I needed to say at the moment. So anyway, there's that. If anyone sees this, I hope that gives you something to think about, and I hope it gives you something to think about that leads you in the correct direction. Take care.